Well, President Trump's attacks on minority members of Congress could impact his hopes for re-election in 2020. The Associated Press recently interviewed more than 36 suburban women, a crucial demographic to his 2016 victory. And the report says nearly all the women interviewed expressed dismay at the president's, quote, racially polarized insults and what was often described as unprecedented treatment of people. Republicans are also struggling to recruit women for the House of Representatives since the president took office. The number of Republicans in the House dropped from 22 to 13 after the 2018 midterms. In the same election, the number of Democratic women in the House increased 64 to 89. Rebecca Schuller is the executive director of Winning for Women. It's an organization aiming to recruit Republican women to run for office. So, Rebecca, that number was pretty incredible, that the number of Republican women went down in the 2018 midterms from 22 to 13. What do you make of that number?
Thank you so much. First and foremost, it's just such a pleasure to be on your show today and, sort of talk about what we think is a really critically important mission for the country. As you mentioned, I'm the executive director of an organization called Winning for Women. We are firmly committed to seeing right-of-center women have the resources that their peers on the left and, frankly, their male peers on the right have to win. We're doing that in a few ways. First and foremost, somewhat akin to what organizations on the left are doing is building out a nationwide network of people who, really can find a home then to figure out a way to support those candidates and see those numbers rise. The second part of what we're doing is putting together a super PAC. We launched a group a few months ago, actually, an action fund that comes in and provides that other support. The reason I gave you the long answer into that is just really to walk through where I think the sort of gaps are in support of our right-of-center women. You mentioned that the numbers obviously fell to rather grim levels in my eyes. For women in the House and Senate. Frankly, it's a trend that we've been watching for several cycles now, and it's why our organization exists. I think that without the critical infrastructure that, frankly, exists for women on the left, you see those numbers drop on the right. You've mentioned in the past before, the primaries, that it's so hard for Republican women to get out of these primaries. Why is that? Again, I go back to one of infrastructure. If you don't have the money and the resources and just the general support behind women, going into that primary election, they don't have an opportunity to get to the general. I think that the Democrats, and again, I think this is outside group support, have done a really good job over the last 4 decades of building that. The GOP needs a nudge as well, and that's why a group like Winning for Women exists. So does Republican leadership on Capitol Hill play a role in recruiting these women? Is it the pipeline that you're worried about? I'm not as worried about the pipeline. We have seen, frankly, record numbers of women jump in this year, but that's not new. Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, she chaired recruitment at the NRCC last cycle, and I think they had around 120 women jump in and run. To me, that's not a pipeline issue. Again, I think it's one of resources going behind these women once they get into the race. And again, primaries, you got to do it early, or these women don't have a shot of being on the ballot in November. I want to ask you about this Quinnipiac poll. It shows that a majority of both college and non-college educated white women say they will definitely not vote for President Trump in 2020. Do you believe the president sort of impacting these efforts to get Republican women in office? Rena, again, this is an issue that we have been watching our numbers decline on the right with our women members for a number of decades. A number of cycles. This isn't new to 2016 or 2018. I do think that the president has been a motivator of women in general for a host of reasons. In the places where he is a positive for a candidate, that's going to be a good thing. In the places where he's not, and there certainly are some, that's where an organization like ours kicks in and helps figure out where are the gaps that person needs support, and we come in and provide it. Yeah, but support is so critical. I've heard this repeatedly from women in the Democratic Party who've managed to make it through their first cycle. Your organization, Winning for Women's Actions, the fund, it's a super PAC. It helped recruit Dr. Joan Perry in the Republican primary for North Carolina's 3rd district. She actually lost by nearly 20 points. What did you learn from that race? We learned a lot. And I think the first thing we learned was that an organization like ours can have great success, and that you did see that in that race. Here was a woman, a great quality candidate, smart. She's a doctor, a pediatrician, not a politician, and accordingly had no name ID. She went in from a crowded 17-person primary into a runoff with 2 people, her and, Greg Murphy, who, state rep, had high name ID, you name it. Again, what did we take from it? We take from it that we had some success, that that we have things to learn from it for sure, but that the existence of an organization like this can make a difference and will make a difference.
You know, remember that famous postmortem that says you've got to get more women of color into the Republican Party, into the tent. There's only one Republican woman of color in Congress at the moment, Washington Congresswoman Jamie Herrera Butler, who's of Mexican descent. Are you focusing on getting non-white Republicans into the tent as well and to run for office?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I love that you mentioned Representative Herrera Butler. We love her. She's fantastic. I do think that a story like hers, you know, deserves to be told. And, you know, we're seeing multiple candidates jump in, women candidates this side. You've got Young Kim out in California. You've got, you know, Stephanie Bice out in Oklahoma 5. You know, these are all women of diverse backgrounds who I think are going to make great members. And again, an organization like ours is going to be here to really kind of put some resources behind them and allow their voices to be heard and really push out their profiles, which I think makes a huge difference.
All right, we want to thank you for coming up and best of luck getting Republican women out there and on the ballot box. Thank you very much, Rebecca Schuller, for joining us.
I really appreciate it.
You bet.